You're listening to the NC Food and Beverage Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Visit Jocko. Johnston County, North Carolina, affectionately known as Jocko, is located just 30 minutes east of Raleigh. Great for a day trip or weekend excursion. Jocko offers an emerging culinary and craft beverage scene rooted in rich agricultural heritage. Travel one of our unique food trails, visit a family farm, and relax at one of several chef-owned eateries. Jocko is also soon to be home to 2 brand new food halls. Go to johnstoncounty.nc.org for more info and come explore Jocko for yourself.
This is the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and hitting subscribe on your friend's phone without them knowing. Coming to you from the kitchen studios in downtown Raleigh. This episode is sponsored in part by Spot On, tech that helps your business grow. Request a demo at spoton.com. And GigPro. Change the way you find staff with GigPro. And Joe Van Gogh Coffee, serving the community from seed to cup. And now, the Chalupa and the Knish. It's Max Trujillo and Matthew Weiss.
And welcome back, everybody. If you haven't listened to episode 1 of the Chef Scott Crawford episode, I implore you to download and listen to that now, because this is part 2, the continuation of the Scott Crawford episode. Enjoy.
Well, and it's interesting. So, speaking about Crawford Cook Shop, where we were having this conversation, it's funny, but the way we talked about the media, kind of pulling this all back together, that I interpreted before I had gone to Crawford Cook Shop, and the way I had read the articles about Crawford Cook Shop and what was coming to Clayton and coming out there, was that I thought you were just basically turning your Crawford curbside into more of like a fast casual space.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was the talks about you doing fried chicken and doing, you know, just wings or whatever and making these things, you know. So in my head, I was like, oh, so Crawford's doing like a QSR, quick service restaurant over there. That's interesting. That's cool. Mm-hmm. But then I was completely blown away because I got there, not to say that it's like Crawford and Son Part 2, but it's a whole lot more like Crawford and Son, at least the initial idea of it, in that it is a sit-down restaurant with an amazing bar program with fantastic service, and you can get a full-blown meal. Now, you obviously could get food to go, but that's not really the intention of it. But I think that was the narrative that the media was trying to force upon you or force to the industry, and you even said, you're like, I never said I was doing fried chicken to go.
Well, I said, so we did a fried chicken pop-up at Crawford and Son, and, you know, it was really successful. I mean, we sold it out like 3 times. It was fun. It was amazing. People really enjoyed it. And I mentioned to the media, we're going to do this at Crawford Cook Shop at some point. And we haven't done fried chicken night yet, but we do plan on it. Mm-hmm. And then it will become a weekly thing. We'll have, I think it's going to be Wednesday nights, we're going to do fried chicken. And just one night a week, right? But in mentioning that, you know, they just really grabbed a hold of that. And so, you know, they put it out there like I was doing a fried chicken place. I don't know. Everyone keeps asking me, how's your fried chicken place?
Right. It's probably because like they want to pair up like Ashley's doing a fried chicken sandwich, so Scott's going to do a fried chicken.
Yeah. Well, we just do it for fun. Right. And it is a restaurant. We will be offering curbside and delivery within the next month or so. We're working on the logistics of that, mainly the ordering system, the online ordering system. And we're going to offer fried chicken night. I think we're going to have a smoked prime rib night. So this is all sort of tribute to restaurants I grew up eating at. There was like a night you went for this and a night you went for that. And
Meatloaf Mondays.
You know, cool stuff like that, just for fun. So, yeah.
And you have Chef Brian Slattery. He's on your team.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's so funny. Like, he came across my Facebook profile, like, you know, you should know this person. And I'm like, sure. So we're friends, and I think Brian and I have even, like, commented on each other's statements, you know, comments here and there. I don't know, Brian. Have we actually even met in person? Like, I don't know. But, like, now he's just a guy I know. But how did you get in touch with this guy? And what does he bring into Cook Shop?
So he worked for a protege of mine at Sea Island, Daniel Zeal. After I left Sea Island, he worked for Danny. And Danny had been with me since he was just a kid back in the Ritz-Carlton days, he was an intern there. Now he's, running the culinary operations of all of Sea Island pretty much. So Brian reached out to me and said, hey, I've heard all the stories. I think I want to work for you. And I said, you think? Have you given this a lot of thought? And he said, yeah, I do. And so we met several times, and he was at the Carolina Inn. And I really enjoy him. He's a great guy. He's incredibly dedicated. He's a family guy, and he's committed to the Clayton community, and he's just been incredible to work with. So it happened very organically, very much like most of the people who work with me.
Yeah.
They just kind of find me. We don't recruit a lot,
Yeah. Well, we haven't mentioned Jolie yet. And
yeah.
Jolie, named after your daughter.
Right.
And you had Crawford and Son.
Yep.
So your son was like, cool, I got mine.
I got a restaurant.
I'm in. They made a quick cameo one time when we were at Terra Vita, and you were there, which was such
That's right.
an adorable. It's the one time Chef Crawford has been on the podcast.
I remember.
Actually. We kind of forced your hand. You're like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? We're like, well, he can't move. He can't leave.
You're like, here's a microphone.
Here's a microphone in your face. You can't look bad in front of your kids by saying "scram, beat it, guys." But your children were there, and so
They were helping me serve cassoulet or something like that. I think we had duck cassoulet.
You did have duck cassoulet.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing what you've experienced in a way that my 12-year-old now daughter, Alexandra, has come by Crafton to she's like, I want to work there. I want to help out. And so we've been having her run food and bussing tables, and it's just fun. And everybody around there's just like, oh, she is the best. She's so sweet. And like, no offense to everyone that works there, and I've said it in front of them all. She's my best employee.
Yeah.
Like, because she cares.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, this is my dad's place. And she like works hard and does all that. And so what is your relationship with your kids in the restaurant realm? Like, what is their perspective of it?
Well, Giles works in the restaurants. He washes dishes.
Nice.
And I'm not just saying this, he's an excellent dishwasher. In fact, the team loves him. They love having him.
Yeah.
And in North Carolina, if family members are allowed to work at a young age, but limited hours, things,
Sure.
Jolie, we think, is a little bit too young, but she wants to work the door at Jolie when she's older. And it's not my intention to have them necessarily follow in my footsteps and get into the restaurant industry. I'd rather they maybe use these businesses to learn work ethic and learn some of the lessons I learned when I was a kid. I started working at a really young age, and I was able to work in my family businesses and my family's businesses, and I learned a lot. Yeah. And I'd just like them to learn some of those lessons. And here's an example. My son, this was really touching for me. He came home from school one day, and he said, we had this project at school talking about our community. And I talked about my community at Crawford & Son, my work community, my team. And that was a real moment for me, because that's what I want him to learn in the restaurant. What it's like to be a part of a team and how gratifying that can be, and, what it feels like to work hard and feel like you did good work.
Yeah.
But I told him, why don't you work at the restaurants while you're going to college?
Right.
Something I didn't do. How about
right.
You go to college and you can work at the restaurants while you're going to college and when you come home from college. And there's a lot that can be learned. If you get the bug, great, I'll teach you. But maybe get into tech or something.
There's a lot of other ways to make money in this industry.
Yeah.
My daughter said to me, and it put a tear in my eye, and this is so sad, and it made perspective, and so that's why I need to be mindful about where I go. And I mention this just to anybody else that has kids and you're in the industry. Alexander's birthday was on Friday, and I stole away a couple hours from the restaurant. Now it's Friday, and we just opened. It's 2 weeks of open, so of course it's hard to break away. And I stole a few hours just to kind of be around for her birthday party with her friends, and then the very next day, though, she texted me in the morning because I was already at Crafton. She's like, Dad, I want to work there tonight. And I said, oh, yeah? She's like, yeah. it's fun, and plus I haven't really seen you very much.
Yeah.
So I just want to be there.
Yeah.
And like, it made me really sad. I'm like, yeah, like shit, my daughter wants to come to work
To see me.
just to see her dad.
Yeah.
And she did. And then it was really nice. Like my team, Elizabeth being one of them, who's sitting here in the room with us, has been so great that she and Corinna and everybody else there has like been able to like lock it down and make sure that the place is running properly, that I was able to kind of cut out early. And I think by like 8:00 that night, my daughter and I just sat down and just enjoyed the experience of being at Crafton, and we just ordered food and had some dessert and laughed and like kidded around and did like Snapchat selfies and all that and put it up. And it's like, yeah, this is the type of experience I want to have with my kids at a restaurant, if it's the one that I own and that I run. Not like, oh my God, I need you to work. And then the funny thing is, the very next day, Sunday, I'm headed in and she's like, Dad, I want to work again tonight. And I said, no. She was like, what? I said, well, two things. One, it's a gloomy day. It's going to rain. Probably not going to be that busy. So I really just don't need you, staff-wise. Two, this is not a habit we're going to start here.
Yeah.
And she's like,
You
what?
have school.
I go, not on a school night.
Yeah.
I said, a Saturday night for a couple hours, totally fine. I said, but this is not like, I don't want it to be a situation where I'm like, oh my God, I need my daughter here to like bust some tables because we're lean. I say this now, but
We'll see how that.
Yeah.
Well, I love that she wants to work, though. I love that.
Yeah.
My kids do too. They really enjoy it.
Yeah. Let's talk about your wife while we're talking about family. She, very similar to my wife, is a phenomenal photographer.
Yeah.
And she has been your visual outlet to the community for so many years. I mean, you see these amazing pictures of your food, and they almost exclusively are Jessica's food. Like, she's put it out there, and she does a great job. It's funny, I asked my wife today, I'm like, what would you ask Scott Crawford on the podcast if you had a question? She's like, when is Jessica and he going to put a cookbook out together?
Great question. That's a great idea. Well, first of all, she's amazing, and we have, I think, just completely strengthened our family unit and our marriage and everything working together.
Yeah.
And you hear a lot of stories opposite of that, right? Mm-hmm. Didn't work well. And I didn't know what it would be like to work with my wife. I just knew that I enjoyed seeing her more when she worked, because we used to just work out of Crawford and Son. Mm-hmm. And she would come down and she does also, by the way, all the bookkeeping, or most of it now. We have two people. But she was always doing the back office stuff, and then the in-house marketing, the photography and all that.
Yeah.
And but she would be there. So I'd be in the kitchen. If I wanted to see her, I could just go out and see her. Go out into the dining room and walk back to the office, maybe have a cup of coffee with her, maybe have lunch with her. I just knew I liked that, because before, when I was in luxury hotels, I just wouldn't see her for 14 hours,
right?
15 hours.
Yeah.
And often when we saw each other, we were exhausted because we haven't had little kids and no one was sleeping enough. And so I enjoyed that part. But then I just really developed this whole new respect for her in how smart she is in how much she's contributing to the brand and the business, and it's just really been amazing. So, and then the kids and the travel and the inspiration, and it just, the way that Jolie came about was so organic and so incredible. My wife said, I want the family to go experience Paris together, and I said, that sounds great, let's do it. We went. My daughter fell in love with that city. And for a little kid to fall in love with a city, so much so that she bawled when it was time to leave. She couldn't grasp the idea that we couldn't move there and just stay there.
Yeah.
And then we come back, and the space next door to Crawford and Son came available. And, I had this just instant idea. Well, we'll name the restaurant Jolie, and we'll do a little French bistro. And a lot of people didn't think, I think even including my business partner at the time, that we could do it in such a small space. Mm-hmm. But with the rooftop, I crunched the numbers,
right,
and I felt like we could definitely do it. And then I I went to Charleston. I ate at a restaurant called Chez Nous, which is tiny, and I was like, we can do this. So it was just sort of this beautiful thing that came about in this incredible way. And, it's been this sort of whole family affair. This entire entrepreneurship journey has been a family affair, which is really amazing.
Yeah. Your Paris trip happened a couple months before my trip with my family. We went to all over France for like a month, and we stole your itinerary. I think Jessica was like texting with Felicia or so, and it was like, where did you go? And
I think I remember that.
She put out like this brilliant like list of every place that you had all gone.
She's good at that.
Yeah. And so we were just like, it's good enough for Scott Crawford. It's good enough for me. I can do this. And so we went and we basically followed in a lot of your footsteps of certain restaurants and certain places just to go and hang out. And yeah, I don't know what it is. Paris is so magical. We went to so many different cities, but yes, our two girls, whereas like my wife fell in love with the Dordogne and I loved Lyon probably the most, but Paris just sang to the girls.
Yeah.
They're just like, this is where I want to be. My daughter Alexandra, she's like, so how do I get to Paris through college? You said I could do that? I was like, yeah, you can study abroad. She's like, I am definitely doing that, Dad.
Yeah,
so.
I think my daughter's going to want to do that too.
I want to get into something about, you're talking about changing the industry or bettering our industry. Is that one of the main things? I mean, including family in your work, or I mean, it sounds like it happened organically for you, but I know I've heard you talk about working in the Relais and Chateau properties in the Umstead, and it's like every holiday you're working, Christmas, Easter, whatever it is, and you don't get to see your family. So was that one of the intentional things that you said, like, when I'm going to be a principal business owner, that is all has to change?
Well, it was more just the idea that I should make the industry leave it better than I found it.
Yeah.
So if I can say that to myself honestly at the end of this run, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And I think so far we've made great strides. I can tell you that the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company was probably the most abusive situation I've ever been in with regards to the number of hours expected, the commitment expected. I did an opening at New York Central Park. I opened that Ritz-Carlton as part of the task force, and I slept 2 hours a night for 10 days, and I was hallucinating from sleep deprivation. Have you ever done that? It's almost like eating acid. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Because you see things that aren't even there, and that's from working and lack of sleep. And I would never allow anyone who works for me to experience that level of exhaustion or anywhere close to that.
Because how productive could you even be at that point?
I mean, They didn't care.
Yeah.
And if they did, they just didn't notice or, I mean, I'll tell the story. I don't know if I've shared it publicly. Maybe I have. But I was late to a lineup one morning because I overslept, because I had been working late, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And the lineups every morning were 7 a.m., I think. And so I made it there 7:15, whatever. So for the lineup in the evening, and these are all executives from around the world. That lineup in the evening, they sat me in a chair. I think they tied me to the chair. They put my feet in cold water, and they blindfolded me, and all of them threw wet sponges at me.
What? As like a hazing punishment?
Hazing punishment for being late to the lineup that morning.
Wow.
By today's standards, I would have
a lawsuit,
$9 million, and I'd be retired.
Yeah.
Right? That was just a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, just a quick break from today's show as we are coming to you from Charleston Wine and Food, having a fantastic time out here, but want to take a quick break just to talk about some of our fantastic sponsors that help keep our lights on for the show.
Yeah, and looking around at all this technology and people trying to streamline things with a huge event like Charleston Wine and Food, I'm thinking who could really help them for the 2023 version is Spot On, working with you, for you. Whether you need simple mobile payment technology or a fully integrated restaurant management system, Spot On will work with you to customize the right set of tools for your business. And as those needs evolve and your business grows, like Crafton 2 and 3, we not only have the existing technology to support you, but are constantly innovating to help your future-proof your business. So, call Tanya Manibo. It's 858-213-7820. Tanya is a local rep. You can also email her, tanyam@spoton.com. That's TANYAM@spoton.com.
And we're in the town where it all got started for GigPro. That's right, GigPro got started out of Charleston with Chef Ben Ellsworth, but GigPro is calling all restaurants and hospitality owners, managers, and employees. You get to know GigPro because they're changing the way people work and hire. We're not just filling shifts, we're bringing instant solutions to the table for the entire industry. So businesses right now, sign up and get your first gig on us. First gig free from GigPro when you use the gigpro.com/NCFB promo code. And for the pros, get $5 off for everyone you refer. Learn more about the app, their mission, and sign up for free on gigpro.com.
And while we're here, drinking all this great wine and all this food and doing all these interviews, I need my Joe Van Gogh pick-me-up fix. And I think I spotted the Nicaragua Selva Negra estate. Coffee there?
You just saw it out there?
I think I saw it out there.
You might have seen it. You might be seeing things too, because I saw all that champagne you were drinking earlier. But
maybe.
I'll back you up with the Nicaraguan Selva Negra estate. That might be my jam, my favorite jam, at least right now. Man, it's delicious. Check it out. So go to joevangogh.com to learn more about all of their different coffees. Do it the way we do it. We grind it real nice. We put it in a Chemex, and we do a pour over with a little gooseneck. Get that heat up to about 207 degrees. Really nicely done. It's elegant. It takes all of that bitterness away and leaves you with just the perfect flavor of the coffee. Joe Van Gogh, excellent stuff. Thank you. But yeah, we're going to get back to Charleston Wine and Food. We're going to recap in next week's episode. We've already interviewed some fantastic people, a couple more to go as we go through the whole event. We look forward to seeing people. I can't wait. We just did a Pinot Envy, which was awesome. And tonight we're going to do Shucked. Yeah, oysters, sparkling. We look forward to it. But wish y'all could be there. But we will see you when we get back. It is weird, though, and I'll speak kind of off the cuff about that. Like, you and I, Matt included, kind of grew up in that industry of, like, you got to be tough.
Yeah.
And you got to work hard, and you got to do whatever. And it's still in me, and I'm going to speak just for myself. It's still in me as far as expectations and what we do. And I've observed recently with Crafton opening, because we're working long hours and we're out there and we're doing things. I've had, it's interesting that we have a lot of young people that work with us, and I get more comments from my staff to me as the boss, like, I don't like the way so talked to me. And I went, what's that? And then they're like, this person told me not to do this, or this person this. They're really like, they're telling me what to do. And I said, well, they are, yeah, they're the shift lead. That's their job.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, but I mean, they were like, hey, get over here. Hey, clean this. Hey, do that. And even somebody said to me that works in one of the kitchens, when I said a ticket got lost, and I said to the guy who's making the food, I'm like, hey, I need a burger and I need fries on the fly right now. And he went, hey, bro, don't come at me like that. And I said, excuse me? Don't talk to me like that. Like, you got to ask nicely. And I went, if you're asking me to be polite about food that was mistakenly made or not made at all, you're not going to get that from me.
Right.
We're in the middle of the heat right now. And so I can say please and thank you in the beginning and the end of shifts, but right now,
I need this.
Don't expect me to ever say this. Like, I doubled down. I wasn't like, oh, I'm sorry,
Sure.
let me play by those rules. I said, no, I'm saying I need this now because right now we have a guest that doesn't have food, and it's not their fault. It's ours. I don't know whose fault it was in the end, but it's irrelevant until this problem is fixed.
Sure.
So make it.
Yeah.
And so I was firm and maybe I'm a dick and whatever, but I'm like, wow, I get it. Communication has become much more clear and people are expressing who they are as people and when they feel offended and all. But is there a little bit of a rub of like, do we always have to be completely kind and nice at 100% of the time?
Well, I think the pendulum always swings way far the other direction, right? I mean, that's what I've experienced. People, they don't even feel like they need to be on time to a interview now. That's a whole other story, right? But I will tell you that during that same opening, about, I don't know, maybe 7 days into my 10-day work there, we made a mistake, and the what was his position? The president of culinary operations for the Ritz-Carlton. His name was Peter Schock. Amazing guy. He sat me down and calmly said, if you can't do this, I'll put you on a plane today and send you back home. And I looked at him and said, there's no way in hell I'm getting on a plane. There's no way that I'm leaving this abusive environment unless I feel like I succeeded. And it was just the mentality, like, if I went home early, my career with the Ritz-Carlton was over, by the way.
Right.
That's how it worked. If I go home and Peter calls my boss and says he did a great job, I'm promoted that year. Mm-hmm. That's how it worked.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm getting on that plane. I will not sleep at all tonight.
Yeah.
All those free stages, talking about GigPro and paying people to stage. It's like, it used to be like, and I mean, I'm sure it was said once before, and you probably had nothing to do with this, but like, some middle manager says to an aspiring line cook, yeah, you want to work with Scott Crawford? You're going to stage tonight, which means you're going to work for free tonight, and you're going to learn, and we're going to see how you move in the kitchen, and your payment is that you get to work next to Scott Crawford. I'll say it differently. I'll take your name out of it. I worked for Wolfgang Puck for 5.5 years. He's arguably the most famous chef living. That was the mentality every single time. It was, your payment is you get to rub elbows, you get to be in the same kitchen. And many times Wolfgang wasn't even in that kitchen. He's just got his name on the door. And it's like, like, you get to be here. You get to be privileged to be associated with someone who's got a great pedigree of their culinary art. That's your payment.
Well, we tell these stories, and you could tell that we kind of enjoyed some of that, right? But clearly we want to move the industry forward. I think a lot of people think of the stages, which, by the way, now are just illegal, I think.
Yeah, they always were. But no one ever called it.
So the beautiful thing about a stage, every great thing is abused in some way, right? The beautiful thing about a stage was you could go and experience things and consider it part of your education. And in return for that, because they don't have to let you in their kitchen, right? I did a lot of stages. I worked a lot for free, and I learned. So it wasn't for free. I wasn't working for free. I was working toward my education. But that would then become abused by someone who just had a bunch of free labor, right?
Yep.
Calling it a stage. I think Charlie Trotter was the one who first got sued.
That's right.
And he was probably abusing the shit out of it. So it was really actually a beautiful thing for those of us who wanted to go and learn. And it was our choice to go and learn there for free.
Right.
And it was usually related to a school or a culinary school.
Someone set it up for us,
my new friend Peter, the Canadian barbecue guy that came out here that was on the podcast, he Pitt County Barbecue. He just came out here because he just wanted to learn from all the different pitmasters. And he's like, hey, can I just like be in the room with all of you each night? You don't have to pay me. I just want to learn. So that's an education that you really couldn't even pay for, really.
Right.
I mean, if Sam Jones is opening up his kitchen so that you just stand there in the corner, it's like, what would that even cost? Well, it'd probably cost thousands if you really wanted to put a number on it. But in this respect, it's like, well, if you want to help us like move some plates around and clean a few dishes and do whatever, then we call it equal or call it even. It's like, yeah, cool, because I'm getting something out of it.
Right.
So it's not a bad thing.
Well, until it's abused. Or I think predatory attorneys can pretty much ruin everything too, right? And they're out there circling around just going, hey, we could probably get you some money and us some money, and so let's sue this guy because you worked for free.
You said the pendulum swings, and I think that's spot on, no pun intended. But so what does that mean? Like, will one day the pendulum swing completely the other way, and you have the screaming chef back, you know, and like that thing, because I sure like what you're saying, right? There should be an intrinsic pride. Like, I want to go work for Scott Crawford or Wolfgang Puck or whoever it may be, because I'm going to learn, and that's going to impact my life and my career. And you intrinsically feel that. But then I also see the benefits of it, right? Like, there's an intentional scheduling, or we'll close the restaurant, you know, a day, maybe 2 days, so that everybody has a family day and they don't feel like, fuck, this sucks, because every time I have a moment with my family, or there is a moment with my family, I'm at work and I can't enjoy it. So I guess maybe we'll start to reap some of those benefits, and then it'll swing back, because I'm really curious, maybe you can answer, is where does this end? Because I feel like I'm in this life of entitlement and this uber focus on our feelings that maybe it's too much, because everybody does have feelings, and there's no way you're not going to offend anybody. So how do we all move forward and still do our job?
Yeah, right. Because again, it's always going to be hard work.
Right.
And sometimes intense work, right? So I hope that the pendulum, you know, swings back somewhere in the middle, where, you know, abusive kitchens are a thing of the past, and when we enter into the kitchen, however, we're not so easily offended or worried about our feelings, because someone can be intense with you and it's not personal. And so we really search for those individuals who understand that. We're not going to call you names or throw anything at you, but if we forget to say please when we're asking for a component on a plate, you won't throw your hands up and say, well, I can't work here, you know.
Yeah.
We need to understand that we're still working in an industry that's tough, and but we care about each other. That's the thing, you know, and we do care, and we can have that conversation after service. And if you have some feedback and say, you know, I think that if you came at me a little bit differently, that I could be more productive. I've had those conversations with people before, and I respect that, and certainly think that we can learn how to communicate with each other.
Yeah, I think, Matt, to your point, or I think like the disconnect, we had this conversation with Ben Ellsworth of GigPro. We were talking about like passion, right? And my whole thing is like, and maybe Scott, you can speak to this, is back in the day, you were, if you were in a line cook or even a sommelier or whatever, you were there for the concept. You were there for that restaurant, Spago, or, you know, a Danny Meyer restaurant or something. You were there to be a cog in the machine for that place. And then now, because so much turmoil has happened and the quality of life has been taken to that nth level, to where people are like, hey, like, it's got to be a little bit more about me, the human working there now. We're in that reflective moment right now where we're specifically trying to create a place where people are now analyzing the work environment to fit the employee's needs first.
Right.
I think the where the swing needs to come back is where we've leveled that field to where it's like the standard is proper respect for everybody's work environment and proper pay, and you know, and we don't overdo whatever, so that part can just get kind of tucked under and not talked about every single day.
Right.
And then we can get back to the concept.
Right.
So that we're worrying about a Scott Crawford dish. We're worrying about a Matt Weiss, you know, designed wine list, about something that is specific about the output as opposed to just the behind the scenes thing. I think we're nestled in that right now, and we are that abused pit bull that needs to be pet a lot and like whatever. And then finally, when that pit bull gets that trust, now we can play fetch. Now we can throw it, and then they can do that. But we're not there yet.
Right.
Right. Does that make sense?
That's a great analogy. Yeah. Well, and going back to the media, you know, they're writing an awful lot about how messed up our industry is, and I'm not seeing them write a lot about the solutions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You never hear about the solutions.
Not at all. Because I'm listening.
Right.
I've been listening, and I have been honestly, and I can say this honestly, trying to be part of the solution for a very long time, longer than this has been talked about.
Can we talk about? I don't know what you're doing, and this is like literally, I'm just asking because I want to know as a new business owner. Are there things that you're doing with pay, with what you're paying your employees, what you're covering? Like, what's the tip percentage looking like? Like, what's the tip pool looking like? Like, are you doing certain measures to ensure that your employees have that quality of life and pay, guaranteed, if you will? Is there anything like that you're doing?
Well, the first thing that we said we're going to do is we're going to be a 5-night restaurant,
Right.
which, people say, oh, well, great. What does that mean? Well, it means a hell of a lot less revenue for the company.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. So,
And it means that you, employee, get 2 nights off with your family or your
Exactly.
significant others or your friends.
pretty much guaranteed, unless you want to come in and prep on a Monday, which we'll occasionally do. Or we could leaves that open for the team to actually do things together.
Yeah.
As a team, it leaves that evening open to go experience another restaurant together or do a guest chef dinner or pop-up, things like that. But we kind of got creative in focusing on health. And so we have a chiropractor who comes in and adjusts the whole team.
I've heard about this.
And we had, a massage therapist coming in before service and doing massage. And we have, staff meal on Fridays and Saturdays now, so the busiest nights. We have things that we actually have done on trade.
Yeah.
And they're just creative ideas to focus on health and teach people healthy ways to deal with stress instead of just drinking after work or,
Right.
partying. It's just, we lead by example, and most of my mentors drank after work, and so I drank after work. And now we don't do shift drinks at all. No one gets rewarded for their work with alcohol. We reward them with compensation, and we try to show them healthier ways to deal with stress. Now, they're adults. If they want to go out after work and have some drinks, that's fine, but I'm not going to just give them drinks because they did a good job. So this is just the focus. Now, we're a relatively small company. We have 3 restaurants, and we have a lot of ideas as we get to 4 and 5, because then we have more revenue. And with more revenue, then we can roll out a lot more company benefits and health initiatives.
Yeah.
But those are some of the creative ideas that we have come up with so far.
And are there health benefits for your employees at this point through the restaurant?
No, we will roll that out with number 4.
Okay.
Restaurant number 4. And by the way, if anyone in this world wants to make our industry better, they need to really be addressing that.
Yeah.
They need to be addressing why can't 3 restaurants afford health insurance? Because I'm telling you, it is ridiculous how much this stuff costs. There was a point where my health insurance was more than my mortgage. And that's not a mortgage on a small house. That's a $500,000 home at the time. Now I have type 1 diabetes, so they nail me. And,
Right.
But
Your premiums
my
are way up.
health insurance was more than my mortgage at one point.
That's political, whatever, but I think the question should be a little differently, because we've talked about the restaurant too. Why is your job responsible for your health, is my thought. Why do we live in a country that requires your job to care
Right.
for your health
Right.
care? When we easily could figure out other ways to do it. You're a citizen, you have a social security card or social security number, and you pay into the machine because of that number every day.
Yeah.
Why isn't the one footing the bill the same company that's getting all that payment? And so there are other examples all across the world that don't require your job to be responsible for your pay.
So
that
now
we could
you're a
figure out.
socialist, Max?
Hey, man, I just don't think that jobs need to be, it's like, hey, you talk
That's
about.
okay. Next week you'll be talking about how Crafton has to afford all the insurance for your employees.
That's
Well,
something I will not flip-flop on, Matt.
When you sit down and crunch the numbers as
Yeah.
a business owner, I absolutely could attract more and better talent the more benefits that I can
Correct.
provide, right?
Yeah, sure.
Why wouldn't I want to provide them if it's affordable? But it is astronomical.
It's astronomical.
Yeah.
Astronomical.
And all those numbers are so they're all fake numbers in the end when you start looking
Inflated,
at once the insurances get involved and they're
Yeah.
like, how much does this pill cost? Well, technically it costs 32 cents, but we're going to charge $89 for one.
Well, that's another thing. It's extremely complicated. So I've had multiple meetings about this, and I have an HR representative working for our company to help me roll this all out when the time comes. But it's incredibly complicated, like way more complicated than I thought.
Sure.
Yeah. So
It's not like I can just offer you a health plan and everyone gets the same
Just
thing.
doesn't work
you
that
pay
way.
this much. No,
But
it's-
usually when it's that complicated, it's because someone's doing something in the back door that doesn't want to be seen. So they just put a bunch of clauses in.
well,
front of
everyone
things.
has to get their cut, right?
But do they?
Yeah, no, I get it. Trust me, I think that's something that should be looked at.
It should be clear and clean. That's
yeah.
what
healthcare and education is
Yeah.
two major issues, but
Yeah.
like who does it better, unfortunately. But yes, there's always the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that somebody else is finding that we're not. So
And also going back to what can you do as a small company, we can just pay attention.
yeah.
You know, we train our leaders to pay attention and watch for people who may be struggling within this industry and be able to mentor them in a meaningful way and recognize when they might be getting burned out, because we try to be heroes sometimes and we don't want to take a vacation. Maybe we need to tell them to take a vacation. Maybe it's time for us to just lead in a different way and pay attention and just care.
Yeah.
But we're not always perfect at that. But
Stepping away for a couple of minutes, like
Yeah.
from industry wise and stuff like that, I do want to know a couple of things about like who are your inspirations? What do you read? And I know music is a huge part of your life and a huge part of the way to stress. So like, tell us about that and how you came into music, and then you and Max can geek out about your guitars.
well, there are so many parallels between music, the music industry, and the art versus the industry, and with food and cooking, and the art versus the industry. And so I've geeked out on that. But I got into music young in high school, picked up a guitar and started playing. And when I got into cooking, I put it down. I got to be a decent player. I put the guitar down. I think I actually probably sold them, pawned them, either to pay my power bill or buy drugs, at some point, and ended up just with no guitars. And then I got into cooking, so I just didn't play. And then actually when I was working for the Ritz-Carlton, I had a mentor named Richard Arnoldi, who was an amazing guy. And he said to me one day, I was just obsessed with cooking and obsessed with food, just to a degree that it was detrimental. And then, of course, self-medicating for all of the stress and the pressure that goes along with the level that we were cooking at. And he just came to me, he sat me down one day and he said, man, you got to get a hobby. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't have time for a hobby. You kidding me? And he's like, no, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You need to get a hobby. And so I picked the guitar back up at that time, and always was into motorcycles too.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a little kid. I got on my first motorcycle when I was 8 years old and really never looked back. I've always been riding something since then. I got my first Harley Davidson when I was 18 or 19 when I moved to the beach in Florida.
Yeah.
Completely irresponsible.
Yeah. I was gonna say, how many times have you laid a bike down?
I mean, I only had that thing. It was a rigid frame shovel head chopper way before choppers were cool. Loud as shit, kickstart only, and I had no other vehicle. So I rode it rain, shine, whatever, and I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And then I totaled it and fractured my femur. I got hit by a car. Somebody took me out. And then, later got another one, and I have two now. I ride a little bit differently than I used to ride. I ride safely and responsibly. But
Yeah.
I'm sure your kids and wife appreciate
yes.
yeah. How do you feel about Giles and Jolie getting on bikes?
Well, again, safety first, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that riding motorcycles is incredible. I mean, it is incredible. If you get it, it is like a crack pipe. But I'm all about safety now. I wasn't always about safety, but once a car hits your body and you realize just how much damage that can cause and how quickly you can go from being able to walk to not being able to walk, or worse, you really
get it.
Yeah, you really get it. You really get that you need to be safe. And so going back to music,
I was going to ask you about, we have a mutual love for Mr. Chris Cornell.
right.
And I can hear it and I get it even more. Like I love Chris Cornell, and of course he passed a few years ago. I don't even know if you remember. I don't even know if it went through. I text you. It was the day after he passed, and one of my favorite songs is on the Great Expectations soundtrack is Sun Shower.
Sun Shower.
Such a beautiful song. Oh, if you haven't seen that movie, watch it. It's a cool movie. Gwyneth Paltrow, Ethan Hawke. But he does this beautiful song, and it was weird. It's talking about a sun shower. It's like when the rain comes down and the sun is shining. And the day after he had passed, I'm sitting on my back porch, and a sun shower happened. And I just took my phone out, and I'm like, whoa. And I recorded, and I was like, just recording this sun shower that happened. And then I texted to my computer, and then through the audio stuff, because I'm producer guy, I just threw that music behind it. I threw his song behind it, and I tried uploading it to Facebook, and I got canceled because I don't have the rights to the song Sun Shower.
It's not your music, yeah.
But I just texted it to you, and I was like, who's going to get this right now more than like anybody? And I just texted to you, and it was just listening to Chris sing about this sun shower that happened the day after he passed. And I think about, like, with recovery and not saying anything, when you were talking about Ben's friends and Ben himself kind of quietly taking his own life, when you hear all the stories about what happened to Chris at that time, it was like he was kind of suffering in silence.
Yeah.
And it seems very similar. He just minutes before had just spoken to his wife, and his tour manager had just seen him, and they were just like, no, he was fine. I didn't see anything wrong. Like, no one really knew, and then he was gone.
I mean, I connect with Chris Cornell on such a deep level. Like, I don't know that I was ever. I know I was never that affected by the death of a musician or a celebrity.
Right here with you.
Yeah. As I was. And by the way, I had seen him in concert a week prior. Oh. In fact, a good friend of mine who dines at my restaurants, and we've become very good friends, his name is Farnham Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Said to me.
He's the manager, or he does Beastie Boys, right? Like, he's in Farnham, or at the time. I don't know.
Well, Farnham works with a lot of musicians, and in my restaurant one night he just said, "Hey, do you want to go see Soundgarden? I'm friends with them." And I was like, "Wait a minute, what? What did you just say?" Yeah, get on a plane, meet me in Atlanta. We'll go see him at the Fox Theater. And I was like, man. He goes, "We'll go backstage and meet him." And I was like, "You got to be kidding me, right?" So we went and ate at Staple House. So we had this beautiful dinner, and then we went and saw this unbelievably beautiful show in this incredibly beautiful theater. And we went backstage after, and we hung out with the whole band except Chris. He doesn't really do the
meet and greet
type thing. So, and it was just a few of us. And so I thought I was going to get to meet Chris after all these years. But I will say that the rest of the band, just amazing guys. And Kim, as a guitar player, has inspired me since 1990, or 80, 89. So it was amazing, and it was funny, and it was just awesome. And, a week later, he was gone. And it was just surreal. It was surreal that he was actually gone. When Bad Motorfinger dropped, and I was into their earlier stuff even before Bad Motorfinger, but when it dropped, it just changed my world. I mean, there were Nirvana fans, there were Pearl Jam fans, and then there was, like, Soundgarden
That's
fan.
where I was.
I was a Soundgarden. They didn't get it, right?
They didn't get it. Like,
and I didn't give a shit because it was my thing.
Everyone was all Nirvana, and I was like, it's fine. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's 3 chords. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Pearl Jam was like, okay, it's cool, but it's a lot of and I love Pearl Jam, but
Same.
like
I appreciate both of those.
there was
bands.
something unique happening with Soundgarden, both with the lyrics and his amazing voice, but then Ken Thale's like guitar side,
Like that guy
who
just
was bending notes like that and doing weird.
Have you ever seen his tunings? Like he gave me that night at that show.
Dad, Jimmy Page type of thing,
I
but
mean,
he changes it to the next level and detunes it all down a whole step and a
It's
half.
wild, just wild. But also, there's a darkness to that music that I connected with immediately in 1990. I mean, I am kind of a dark person. I like to explore those dark places, and I think that's why I enjoyed, drugs.
Well, the whole Temple of the Dog album was a tribute to his friend that died from a heroin addiction.
Right.
And Chris Cornell was the impetus of the whole thing. And
Yeah.
he pulled together, which is now, funny enough, in Chris's passing, the current Pearl Jam lineup with Matt Cameron on drums is the Temple of the
That's
Dog
right.
band.
That's right.
Minus Chris Cornell.
Yep.
So he made Pearl Jam kind of exist beyond
Yeah.
from just putting all these guys together.
That's right. Well, and when he passed, then it was like this for me, and of course all the albums that came out in between there, and just, I saw them in 94, 95 on the Super Unknown tour.
Yeah.
And then when he passed, it was like, it was so devastating because he had made it through all of that. Do you know how many of his friends died from heroin? And he made it. And he, had this beautiful family, and he was just doing incredible work, continuing to do amazing work. And I felt inspiration from that because I had also become sober and felt like I was doing my best work now, and having an incredible family, that I never imagined this life. And so I was just incredibly inspired by that. And it was devastating to know that he was suffering and no one knew. And he had, in fact, relapsed, which, they don't talk a lot about.
Yeah.
But it was prescription drugs. So that's the new relapse, right? That doesn't look the same as the old relapse where you're out, getting arrested for scoring dope on the corner.
Right.
It's weird
It's
is
back to the drug companies
Yeah,
again.
exactly.
Mixing it all up.
my own personal story to Chris Cornell and being the only time I ever saw him. It was a weird experience, and it was related to prescription drugs. I had thrown my back out when I was working at Cafe Del Rey, where Matt and I first met, and I threw it back. I threw it out really bad, and I could not recover. And I had to not work for a few days, and I was just bumming, and whatever. So Vicodin. And
Yeah.
I started doing Vicodin, and when you have 3, 4 is so much better.
Yep.
And then 5, and it was like 8 to 10 to 12 in a day, which you talk to some people and they're like, oh yeah, I was like a 50, 60 Vicodin a day type of habit. I was getting there, and I was like getting to be like more and more to it. At the same time, Felicia, my wife, knows that I love Chris Cornell, and he had just released a solo album. This is the one that he did with Timbaland.
Oh,
which-
right.
Scream.
Yeah.
Which I will say is not my favorite album.
No.
Of his. It's kind of like a dance hall, like club music.
There's a couple tracks I really like, but
Yeah.
not something I listen to often.
But they were gonna play at the House of Blues in San Diego, and we were living in Los Angeles. So it's a 2.5 hour drive, but we're like, cool, let's make a weekend of it. Go to San Diego, have a great time, get a hotel. So we did all that. But even on the drive down, Felicia drove because my back was still killing me. But I'm popping these Vicodin, and Vicodin also makes you a total asshole. Like, it puts you in a really dark place, and you get irritable really fast. And I was there, and so now I'm seeing the guy that I consider my number one inspiration currently living, aside from Jimi Hendrix, I'd say Chris Cornell was the guy,
Yeah.
And he goes on stage. First, Timbaland opens it up, and he's playing all of his club tunes. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. These are cute, But then Chris Cornell gets on, and he only does songs off of that album, of which I only knew like one of the songs.
Oh, bummer.
And now I'm like, I'm standing the whole show at the House of Blues, and I'm popping these pills, and my back is hurting more, so I'm popping more. And I'm like, what song is it? Come on, man, play some Bad Motorfinger, play some Audio Slave, anything, do something off of Euphoria Morning, like do something like that. And he didn't do any of it. I was pissed. I was so upset, but I know I was pissed mainly because I think these drugs were really affecting me.
Yeah.
And Felicia could see it too. She's like, hey, chill out. And I'm like, well, what the fuck, man? We came out here to see Chris Cornell and we're just playing this bullshit music this whole time. And at the very end, he decides to play Hunger Strike from Temple of the Dog, which is one of my favorite songs of all time. But by that point, I'm literally going, boo, too little too late, bro. No way, don't do that. And that's what I did at a Chris Cornell concert, which now in hindsight, I feel so ashamed that I booed my idol at that time. But coincidentally, that fucking drug was in me at the time and made me the asshole that I was then. And I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
It made it all kind of connect to me and showed me that like that wasn't even really me. Or it was me, but that was a version of me that I did not like. And I remember after that came like driving home, I was like, I need to get off of this. And I stopped taking Vicodins like immediately. And we started doing boot camp and we were working out more. And like I was stretching my back like crazy and massage and all that. And I haven't had a Vicodin since.
Good for you.
Yeah. But it was weird.
They'll get you quickly.
Was that cathartic telling you that story right now? Because I've actually never heard that. And I think I've heard like 95% of the Max Trujillo stories.
Yeah, I got a lot of stories, but yeah, that was cathartic. I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
That's crazy.
Look, we've been talking for a good while. This is going to be, I'm already saying right now, this is going to be a 2-part episode.
Yeah.
I want
Great.
to cut this and we'll do it again, and we'll have to figure this out exactly how it goes, because we're gonna release this first episode as we're driving down to Charleston for this Thursday.
Yeah.
But this leads me to at least for me, Matt might have a lasting question as well. But we're about to drive back into the business, like the industry. And it's funny, Felicia was talking to me about like her own side of it. She runs Food Scene, and it's a food and beverage social media management company, food photography. She's in it, but she also like trying to even expand beyond just the food industry. But she's like, COVID really had a major effect on me that I just wasn't around my people. Like I wasn't around this, and like this thing that we were about to do in Charleston is this. It's this community of people that love being together. It's, like I said before, a bunch of orphans that come together, and now this is this extended family. And I very much look forward to it. On the heels of that, we just had the James Beard Award nominations just all come out. Matt and I talked about this before, like during COVID and all, it just seemed like the Oscars and all these award shows just seem to be so trite. They just seem to be not relevant to society at this point. We've got social injustice, racial divide, all these things, and it's, Me Too movement, all that. And it's like, who gives a shit if Ryan Reynolds gets an Oscar for something?
Right.
It sounds like the lamest thing to talk about at this point. And I've even said with the James Beard Awards, I love the James Beard Awards. And, we were there on the red carpet in Chicago in 2018. And we love that the next year, Ashley won the national award as Outstanding Chef. I love what it represents in those facets. But I do sometimes feel like, who gives a shit? Like, is it relevant still? And there was, for a long time, you were nominated for so many years, and then just not. You didn't do anything different.
Right. I mean, in fact,
what the hell happened?
Well, I would argue that. Lots of people.
There's 2 questions in there. Who'd you piss off? But also, what are the James Beard Awards still relevant in this industry at this point?
Well, I would say that this is a tough industry, so any recognition is nice and good, right? So I think people have to decide for themselves how relevant these things are. Like I used to think that the Forbes 5-star was everything. It's not really relevant, certainly not relevant to me anymore. Might be relevant to those who follow that list. The James Beard Foundation is certainly a good way to help build your brand, and it's, let me tell you, my fate. So I was nominated 5 times for 3 different projects, which was really pretty outstanding for me.
It was Umstead, it was Herons, and then it was Standard Foods, and then Crawford and Son, correct?
No, it was Georgian Room at Sea Island.
Oh, way back. Okay.
Then Umstead a few times, and then Standard Foods.
That's right.
Not Crawford and Son,
You've
except
never been nominated as
no.
an independent ownership.
Our pastry chef was.
Yes.
Which
Crystal.
was really cool. You know, now it's cool for me to see people, you know, the next generation getting recognized. But again, I could argue that I'm doing the best work now, but
do they look at you different because you're an owner?
I don't know.
Is it because you have
I
a
don't
chef
know
de
what they
cuisine?
do,
I
but
mean,
I would say that the most exciting nomination I ever got was at Georgian Room, because I didn't even know anyone was looking at me.
Right.
And, you know, when you get that and you're just like, well, I didn't campaign. I didn't politically do the right things at all. I've had my head down cooking in this restaurant every day. I believe it was John Kessler who wrote for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution at the time who nominated me. I don't know, you know, for sure, but he had come down and really seemed to appreciate what we were trying to do with Southern food there. But that was the most amazing. I mean, you know, someone had to tell me. I wasn't even watching the list. Someone had to say, man, you know, you're on the list.
Yeah.
And that was really exciting.
That's got to be satisfying.
Well, it was super exciting.
That's like your song on the radio at that point.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
But once you learn how it all works and how icky and political it can be, and like you said, who did I piss off? Well, probably lots of people, because, you know, I just don't give a shit, you know. I've worked very hard. I still work very hard. I have a company to run and grow, and I have a lot of great, talented people who depend on me. And so that takes all of my time and my energy. And so I don't put a lot of energy into awards anymore. I told someone the other day, I think I have 4 or 5 huge boxes full of awards from my career. And they're in boxes. I'd like to say that they're in a room somewhere displayed, but that doesn't feel right either. You know, that was great at the time, but that's the past.
Instead, you have that badass Fender. You're a Fender man, right?
Well, I have
get some
Fender,
Gibsons.
Gibson, and Paul Reed Smith.
You've got those on the wall.
Yeah,
Those are your
exactly.
trophies.
You know, and that's the now. Look, I can afford the guitars I always wanted.
Right.
You know. Mm-hmm. I don't have to drive a piece of shit anymore. You know, I have
Your
a company.
restaurant busy
I'm
every
learning.
night.
My all of my restaurants are busy and successful, and so I have so much gratitude for what I have been given in life and what I've earned, that I don't give a lot of thought to awards anymore. But I don't think they're a bad thing, or, you know, if someone, certainly it feels good for people to have that recognition. But I'll back you up on that point, that during all of these much bigger world issues, it doesn't feel right to focus too much on ourselves and those awards. You know, it doesn't feel the same as it did.
Yeah.
But
and maybe we'll get back. I mean, because also, to not be a total hater on the awards, what they do is they bring it back to the concept again, right?
Yeah.
They bring it back to why we want our chefs and our sommeliers and our servers to feel like they're selling a product that's amazing, and that product comes from some sort of creative. And a lot of times it's the chef, or it's the beverage director, or the GM, the restaurateur, who creates and focuses something that is so significant and unique in our industry that we could all gravitate towards. And maybe the JBFs or whomever acknowledging it is something that then kind of helps galvanize the whole industry again and bring them back. So,
absolutely. The James Sear Foundation has done incredible things for our industry. And, you know, have they had issues and gone through a lot of changes? Sure. But, you know, what organization hasn't?
Yeah.
sure, not the Court of Master Sommeliers.
Right. I remember. Exactly. You know, I mean, that's just the nature of organizations. They have problems and issues, right?
And it's
the way-
like you said, power corrupts powerfully, or you know, power corrupts, and eventually, like they did with stages, somebody fucks it up,
Right.
and then the pendulum has to swing, and you have to go and root it out.
Yeah.
Matt, where you're sitting, Inez Rubistello has been sitting for the last few days reading her book aloud for Life After Windows. I've been recording her audiobook, and she just texted me right now because she's also selling me beer. She's like, are you going to be there later? And so I love Aini. She's one of my favorite people in this industry, and her book is unbelievable. We've already talked about it before, but she had a whole chapter dedicated specifically to her thought about why she cared about the Court of Masters and then how it just fell off with all of the horrible accusations of sexism and all of this. And she's like, so after a while, I just said, fuck it. I don't give a shit about this industry anymore, or this approval company any longer. And now I'm just going to be a Somm for me. And it was so cathartic to hear her say that and just say it out loud. It's like, yeah, and you're a leader in this industry, and you don't, who cares? Study for you.
Yeah.
Don't have to feel like you need to get the approval from someone else, especially when that person is not centered for your best interest.
What a great place to be in life. I feel that at this stage, to be in that place where you don't depend on that acceptance or that validation, that you're confident enough in the work that you're doing and that you're doing good work and bringing others up. I think I would be more excited if one of my chefs got nominated. I know that I was very emotional when Crystal was nominated because she absolutely deserved that, and it was I was emotional. It was like I think I was definitely more emotional than if it was a nomination for me. So it is a really cool place to be where you feel like the work that you're doing is good work and you don't necessarily need validation from other outside, award systems or organizations. That's a great place to be.
Yeah, your work validates your feelings.
Exactly.
Yeah. Having said all that, I'm not going to turn down if they want to give us a media award for the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I'll take it.
Like I said, it's not like
shameless plug.
We might need to get a PR agent to help us get that out there. That helps.
And you know how some of these things work, right? And so, but I certainly have appreciated that recognition.
Yeah,
and would appreciate any recognition because hard work, it feels great to be recognized for hard work and for doing good work.
By the way, we mentioned it earlier, and then we never got to it. But before we get out of here, you said you had a story about John Childers.
Oh, yeah. So John,
you've been waiting this whole time.
Listen, I love this story. Actually, John.
Again, John Childers, for those that didn't get it from part one, he was an executive. He was a executive sous chef, or he was a sous chef at Heron's.
Yeah.
On the Umstead. He did a lot of the banquet stuff. He then worked with me.
He became the CDC for a while.
The CDC, the chef de cuisine. Mm-hmm. He then worked with me as a chef at Midtown Grill for a year. He now currently works at U.S. Foods, great company, and he sells us food and product and all that. And I love him to death. He's a great guy. But you were going to tell an anecdote about working with him.
So John learned that I was coming to the Umstead. Well, I wasn't even here yet. I think the media put out some sort of press release that I would be coming. He did this research on me and was like, man, I want to work for this guy. So he came to the Umstead and got a job like 2 weeks before I arrived, maybe a month. And only job they had was breakfast cook, I think. So he was the guy in there cooking breakfast. And, he's one of the first guys I met when I got there. And he said, listen, I came here because you're coming here, and I'm here to be a soldier for you.
Wow.
Whatever you need. And so John was a soldier. Like, he had to cook all the in-room dining food, all the really difficult things, whatever was really hard that we needed someone to focus on while we were rebuilding this kitchen and under construction. John was the guy. John was the soldier in there who just took a beating and just helped us get through all of that, all of those difficult times so we could end up,
He was savvy, too, because he's like, maybe I wouldn't get hired if Chef Crawford was on staff hiring the new guys. So I'm going to go in before
Oh,
he gets
yeah,
there.
right? Smart, huh?
Crafty.
What do they need? What do you need? A breakfast cook? Okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. Well, he wasn't on breakfast for long. Not that was an easy job, but he was just a soldier. And I always thought, I'd never heard that before. You mean you came on board because you knew I was coming, before I even got here?
Talk about
you're
being
here waiting
to
for
the
me.
industry
Right.
and wanting to work for somebody that, that showed his drive, his vision, what he wanted.
100%.
I love that.
He put his head down and just said, whatever you need. And so he really helped us get through all of the changes that occurred that it took. We had to make these changes in order to get that 5th star.
But I would imagine you as a leader also recognized his dedication and probably validated it and appreciated it. And
Wow,
maybe even
absolutely.
showed him some appreciation
Absolutely.
for it. So.
He came up through the ranks and was promoted and the things that are supposed to happen.
Yeah.
You work
There you
hard,
go.
you get promoted, you grow, and here he is now. I'm proud of him. He's a family man. He's figured out how to make the industry work with his family, and I love that.
Yeah. Well, another industry that we love, and you said one thing, you miss wine. For all the people that are missing wine, you could always go to the Triangle Wine Company at any one of their 4 locations, Southern Pines, out at the Bedford area in North Raleigh, where I was just doing a tasting Friday night. Great tap room. Their Cary location, and then where I live in Holly Springs, always great for your vermouths, your mixers, your beers, and your wine needs. Don't forget, if you go online, go to trianglewineco.com, use the NCFB promo code for a nice little discount.
Yeah, and then while you're there, you can also get Proof Alcohol Ice Cream, which is coming out of South Carolina, down where we'll be this weekend. Proof Alcohol Ice Cream helps you think differently about dessert. With 7% alcohol in every pint, you get flavors like bourbon caramel, coconut rum, strawberry moonshine. The list goes on and on, but go check them out. They've got these beautiful red branded freezers in your beer and wine section of most grocery stores, like your Triangle, that Triangle Wine Company, yeah, but your Harris Teeters and your Lowe's shopping centers and all. But also, remember, Matt, we're doing Bubbles and Brisket number 2.
Ooh, I cannot forget about that.
And we already set the date, so everybody save the date. It's Saturday, June 4th.
Yeah. Don't go out of town that weekend. You're going to want to be here.
Yeah, it's Bubbles and Brisket, where some of our favorite things to eat and drink are sparkling beverages, and we're expanding it. It's not just champagne or prosecco or cava. We're talking about, we talked to Ben Colvin over at the Devil's Foot Beverages, which are all non-alcoholic but fantastic fizzy carbonated beverages. So we'll do some carbonated beverages, we'll do beer, we'll do sparkling wine, but we're pairing it all with a bunch of different chefs and barbecue people, their version a brisket.
Who's going to be there? Who's going to be there? Who's going to be there? Tell me who's going to be there.
I'm not telling it
And
anybody.
we're not releasing it yet.
We
folks.
will tell. But by the way, there will be some repeat guests that were there at the first one. But then there are some big names that we really wanted the last time, but because some people had to open up a brand new barbecue joint at the time, they couldn't be there. But they will be there this time. And so if that's a little clue, that's somebody. But there are going to be some amazing, talented people. I'm not going to put Chef Crawford on the spot, but if he ever wanted to work his way around some brisket and throw it in over at the Bubbles and Brisket, I'm not doing that. But if he did, you know where we'll be on June 4th at Smoky Hollow in downtown Raleigh. We're going to open up tickets pretty soon, but just save the date right now. You'll get it. All of our social media will pump it out there.
Yeah. So, well, Chef, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, letting us behind the scenes and cutting through all that media clutter to really get a clear picture of who you really are. It was a pleasure getting to know you. And for all of you out there, go to Crawford Cookshop in Clayton, go to Crawford & Son, go to Jolie, and then soon to be in Cary, Crawford Brothers.
That's right.
And you will eat and drink extremely merrily.
Thank you so much for having me. I really have appreciated it and enjoyed it. And I feel like I could just talk with you all day long.
Same here. We'll have you come back again sometime
I
soon.
look forward to it. I feel like we have a lot more to talk about.
We got
You'll have
so
to
much
come
more.
back.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Because I am about to pee my pants.
Nothing like having coffee and then...
Thanks for listening to the NCFB podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.